Sean Tester and Maritza Georgia. We wanted to get in a little Substack live on this Tuesday afternoon to tell you some very exciting news. In addition to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce getting engaged, you have some big news, Senator.
A day came that I never ever thought would come, and that is I finished harvest. Yeah. Who knew? 3 weeks ago when the
Congratulations.
roads were underwater, who knew that I would ever come to a point where I could say we're done harvesting in 2025. Now we got all sorts of other work to do, but we won't talk about that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've ever heard you as jubilant as I
Yeah.
did on the phone about 40 minutes ago when you said the harvest is over.
Yeah, that's it. Done. It's in the bin. Now we got to move it around because that's some wet wheat, but that's all right. Yeah. It's all good.
That was
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
my excitement level, I have to say, as a self-described Swiftie. That was my
Yeah.
excitement level over the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce news today.
Good. And then when I was out on the combine working hard trying to feed the world, you were freelancing, right?
Yeah, I do some projects. I do all kinds of projects here and there,
Uh,
you know? You gotta pay
you
the bills.
Yeah, you did a project with, an outfit called Vote Mama, right?
Oh, well, yes, that's right. We recorded this episode last week. I had to do it solo because Senator Tester was out on the combine, like you said. He's
Yeah.
paying his bills, feeding the world. And so we did this interview with Vote Mama's CEO and founder, Liuba Grechen Shirley. And we've really talked so much about women in politics, women's issues right now. There are certainly a lot of them, a lot that a lot of women I know are concerned about, but not just women, men too, because right, we all have women in our lives, women that we love, and women's issues are men's issues too. So we talk about a lot of the barriers for parents, both moms and dads, of young kids in politics, and ways that Vote Mama has worked to remove those barriers. And they're really just getting started. But we thought there was enough news in the world for us to just hop on here now that the harvest is over, go over some headlines with you folks. What do you think, Senator?
Well, I think it's good, but before we get to the headlines, did you talk about the fact that Montana, the great state of Montana, sent the first woman to Congress? Did you talk about that?
See, this is why I needed you.
Oh my god, I can't believe it. Well, that's okay. Well,
Oh
give us a
my.
reason to talk to her
I
again, okay?
I can't believe I forgot that. Yes, Jeanette Rankin, the first woman in Congress from the great state of Montana. I can't even believe that I didn't bring that up with her. I was too laser focused on the questions I had. But see, this is why you can't skip. This is why you
Yeah.
can't skip an episode, Senator.
Well, I skipped and mistakes were made. All right. Anyway, what do you want to talk about?
Mis-
Headlines.
Mistakes. Okay. So Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged, yes. And while the president said he wishes them a lot of luck when asked about it today, it's the other comments he's making that we want to talk about here with you guys. In a cabinet meeting this week, he said, many people seem to want a dictator. And then again today, when asked to clarify that, he said, quote, the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. End quote. So this all comes, as critics call him, an authoritarian, of course, after now arming federal troops in D.C., threatening to send them to other cities like Chicago. I've seen a lot of pictures from my friends who live in D.C. with these, National Guard troops, like literally outside some of the nicest restaurants in D.C. Um, and then when asked about it, Trump said he has the right to do anything he wants to do. Take it away.
Well, all I've got to say is when you got a Congress that's AWOL, yeah, he's probably right. Until Congress pulls their head out of their ass and starts having hearings and having questions and have accountability, this is where we're at. And I will tell you, the only person that I know of that wants a dictator in this country may be the person who says everybody wants a dictator. The bottom line here is that this is really bad, really bad. And now he's actually talking about what everybody was talking about happening, and everybody's saying, don't worry about it. We've got a democracy. Everything's solid. Look, he's wanted to be like Putin. He's wanted to be like Xi. These people are heroes to him, and this is what he wants. This is where he wants to take this country, and he's doing it. And he's doing it in a lot of other ways too, like taking 10% of Intel. That's communism. Taking 15% of Nvidia to be able to sell chips into China. That is communism, folks. That is what I was warned about my whole life. And now we got a president that's doing freely, and Congress isn't doing a fucking thing about it. This is crazy. This is just crazy. And to talk about he can be a dictator if he stops crime. What about the crime in the Republican towns? Doesn't seem to be too worried about that. So I guess people are going to have to start migrating to Democratic towns where crime is lower.
Yeah, I know. I have so many questions about that. I'm glad you brought up the Intel thing, the 10%, because I forgot to include that in our list of headlines to go over, but it's a huge deal. And a lot of people are saying, what the heck is this? What is this? This isn't what our country does.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't what our country does. This is not what our country's about. But as we had the fellow who graduated from the same high school you did that talked about this guy has a boot joint from the East, not the West. I'm talking about the President of the United States. And this is another case of that. And this stuff continues to happen bit by bit, domino by domino. And nobody is there to stop him. And the people that should be doing it are the courts and especially Congress. But Congress is shaking in their boots. Uh, I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, when the book closes on the folks who are serving in Congress right now, and they're thinking about what in their life happened, and they think back on they had an ability to hold people accountable, to provide the checks and balances our forefathers up in, set up in the Constitution, and they failed to do it. I don't know that's going to make you feel good if those are your last days.
The guy who went to my high school, I'll just say his name because it's three-time Pulitzer Prize winning New York Times columnist Tom Friedman. So I'll just
I, I,
plug that. That
I
episode
was
is
going to
out,
do
and it's
that.
a really good episode.
Who, by the way, gave a hell of a podcast. I'll say that. I'll say that. Even though he went to Yale,
Uh,
you know, we won't get
yeah,
into the
and
kind of people we produced at Big Sandy High. We won't do that, but we'll let you go ahead.
even though your friend sent a very, compelling email about why Big Sandy's better than St. Louis Park, and it gave me a lot of joy and a lot of laughs. Yeah, I mean, in that podcast, you had the pride of St. Louis Park, Tom Friedman, and the shame of St. Louis Park, me. Just kidding. George in Virginia writes that he's been wondering where we've been. So we're back, George. Thanks for joining us here on Substack Live. Okay, next headline. On Monday night, Trump said he's firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Of course, this would be unprecedented. He says she made false statements on mortgage applications. I don't have to tell you, right in the middle of his public temper tantrum that he's been having over interest rates and his constant attacks on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, for not lowering interest rates. But if we break it down even more, last week, the guy who oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the mortgage giants, he sent a letter to the attorney general accusing Lisa Cook of fraud. He says that she claimed two primary residents to get better mortgage terms. Now, Cook responded by saying she's not stepping down. In a statement, she said President Trump purported to fire me for cause when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign. Her lawyer says they will sue. This legal battle could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
So here's my perspective. First of all, number one perspective, you do not want to politicize the Fed. The Fed needs to be independent. Once it becomes politicized, all bets are off. And so, if this is what this is about, no. If Lisa Cook lied on her applications, she needs to be held accountable for that. Whether that's in terms of resigning from the Fed or whether that's something else. If in fact she lied, intentionally lied on the applications, that's not a good thing, and she needs to be held accountable. But I don't think this has anything to do with that. By the way, she needs a due process too, by the way, something that has been thrown out the window on a lot of these accusations. People can't prove that they're not guilty. They're not, innocent until proven guilty. Instead, the president comes out and makes the accusations, and there's an assumption of guilt. Due process would allow folks to make sure they're innocent before proven guilty. That aside, the president has been trying to control the Fed since his first term. It would be a big mistake. And my question is this: where's the business community? Because the business community knows if you politicize the Fed, this is a bad, bad thing for our financial markets in this country. It makes us, uh, you know, really, really in a situation where we could lose the reserve currency very, very quickly. And there isn't the stability to the Federal Reserve, which is a bank, by the way, separate from the government. Although we do confirm the
So,
members of the board.
something that always causes me to scratch my head when this stuff comes out, like the accusations, whether it's from the president himself or members of his cabinet. I go back to journalism school where I would have failed an assignment if I didn't use the word allegedly or, basically attributed it to some kind of investigative report. And even in newsrooms, I mean, you can't just go on the news and say, she did this. She lied about this. You have to attribute it. And so I always wonder how the president can just do that so willy-nilly and
Well,
name people by name. But
let me refer you to a decision the Supreme Court made that said the president can do any damn thing he wants, and there's no guilt. He
that's
lives
right.
under different
That's
terms,
right.
by the way, than everybody else in the United States. He shouldn't, but because of a real bad Supreme Court decision, and I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but this is where we're at today. The president can literally do anything he wants without any sort of accountability. Congress could fix some of this. Go ahead.
It's been a while since we talked about Doge. But a whistleblower filed a new complaint saying that Doge put hundreds of millions of Americans' personal data on a vulnerable server, basically like in a cloud environment, that the complaint says circumvents any oversight. The data includes social security numbers. Now, this complaint was filed by the chief data officer for the Social Security Administration. It accuses Doge of violating laws, rules and regulations, abuse of authority, gross mismanagement, and creating what it calls a substantial threat to public health and safety.
It's it's very, very bad, very dangerous. We value our privacy in this country, and this is a violation of that. It's what happens when you have people given carte blanche to do any damn thing they want in these agencies without any oversight, without any accountability. And quite frankly, people will get these social security numbers and they will do bad things to people because they have a ability to do that. It's just real bad. I mean, look, the Signal Gate, same kind of deal. Classified military information put on an unclassified platform. These people, a lot, they don't understand the sensitivity of a lot of this information and they don't care. And that's a problem.
The last headline I have here to chat with you about today, the saga over the Maryland man who was wrongfully sent to an El Salvadorian prison continues. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who we talked about with your friend in a much earlier episode, he was freed last week in a case filed against him in Tennessee. So he went home. He was with his family for literally just a couple of days because then he showed up for a mandatory check in on Monday at an ice field office in Baltimore. And then when he showed up there, he was again taken into custody. The Trump administration said he was going to be deported to Uganda. And on Monday, a judge said the Trump administration is absolutely forbidden from removing him from the US. That's just for now. I don't think we're seeing the end of this.
No, we're not. And once again, it's about due process. This would need to be happening and to give the guys due process. And if he's guilty of what he's accused of, then the appropriate punishment needs to be laid down. But there's no due process here. It's just the administration, the president saying, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do. And this could happen to anybody. And that's why it's scary. Yeah. Chris Van Hollen
Yeah.
talked eloquently about his trip down to El Salvador and visiting with him down there. And that has been, I think that was in the spring. That was probably in April or May that we had that conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, the White House even put out, do you remember the old Obama Hope posters? And
Yeah.
I even interviewed the artist who made that one time. Um, and they put out kind of a mocked up version of that with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and it says MS-13 on it. Remember they falsely said that he had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles, and that was literally there was a whole big fight in the Oval Office or disagreement with the president and Terry Moran before he got axed from ABC. I mean, this has been a long, ongoing thing, but I think they just continue to go after this one guy. Um, it's
Yeah. I mean,
it's quite
look,
something to watch.
let him plead his case in court. This has never happened. He's been accused and shipped out. And that's not how this is supposed to work. And if he came to the country illegally, fine, that's a crime. That doesn't mean he loses all of his rights as a human being, for God's sakes, in this country. We're better than that. We're better than that.
Okay, now let's get into our conversation that I had with our guest today. Well, Senator Tester had a date with the combine. All right, now we want to welcome to Grounded our guest today, who is the founder of Vote Mama. It's Liuba Grechen Shirley, who ran for U.S. House in the state of New York when her two kids were just 1 and 3 years old. And we will hear more about that story, I think. And then that journey is what caused her to spend the years since that run and the loss is to advocate for parents, but specifically moms in politics. We want to say welcome so much to Liuba.
Thank you so much, and you said it very well, so good job.
Wonderful. Yay, we did it. So let's just start. I mean, there's so many women's issues in particular that I would love to kind of unpack and break down with you. But first, for our viewers who aren't familiar, tell us about Vote Mama. How did it start? Why this matters so much to you?
Yeah. Vote Mama was born out of my own experience. I ran for Congress when my older two children were 1 and 3, as you mentioned, and it was really clear why we have so few moms in office. Um, The political system was not designed by women, so it was not designed for women. It was designed for wealthy, white, landowning men at a time where we didn't even have the right to vote. And so the system is truly not designed for moms. Policies are a direct result of who is serving in office. So legislators legislate based on their lived experience, and we have more millionaires in Congress than we have more moms. There are more men named John in the Senate, 3 times more men named John in the Senate than there are moms of minor children. And this is why our policies fail women in this country, why they fail children in this country. And Vote Mama is here to change that. Vote Mama is here to break the structural barriers that moms face when they run and serve, and then to support really incredible moms when they stand up to run.
That's shocking. Like, my jaw dropped when you said that. That's shocking, especially because there are so many working moms, and w Congress is crafting policy that affects all of us. Like, how do you not have more moms at the table?
Yeah. There are, if you look at all of our congressional representatives, only 6.8% are moms of minor children. And at the state level, it's 7.4%. And Congress is crafting this legislation, but state legislatures, they passed 19,000 bills last cycle. They pass the bills that affect our lives every day. And yet there are only 4 states that pay their state legislators livable wages. So it's really difficult to convince a working parent to step up and run when you're getting paid $7,000 a year, or in some cases, nothing. You end up with retired, wealthy people in office who don't have caregiving responsibilities. And this is why we are the only industrialized nation with no paid family leave, with no child care. We are 27th in education and 27th in healthcare globally. We have the worst maternal mortality rate in the industrialized world. And it's because we don't have people who have any concept of what it's like to give birth and raise children in this country at the decision making table.
I keep thinking of the mom in the House, Representative Brittany Patterson, She brought her newborn baby, I think it was only, like, 4 weeks old, to the floor for a House vote, and I keep thinking of, like, what a hardship that is. I mean, when your baby's 4 weeks old, it's hard to just even get to the store, much less get across the country. What are some of the other barriers that you hear from working moms in politics? What are some of the other ways that just don't feel family friendly?
Having votes at 2 o'clock in the morning, having to do call time 25 hours a week, plus your job on top of this, having to commute back and forth between your home district and the capital, not getting to see your children, working 24/7. These are the system. People don't even understand what it's like to run for Congress until you've done it. And I remember trying to find information when I was thinking of running. I was nursing two babies, and I kept thinking, who has done this? Who has done this with children? Where am I going to find information? There was no information. Vote Mama Foundation, our C3 side, which is where we do all of our nonpartisan research, we put together this series called The Politics of Parenthood. And we look at how many moms are serving in office, both at the state level and the federal level, and what that experience is like, because there really was no information in the past. No one looked at caregiving as an identity in terms of who our legislators are. But you talk about Brittany Pedersen. Brittany Pedersen tried to get proxy voting approved. Proxy voting would be a huge boon to just who gets to step up and run. And I remember talking to Brittany. She's one of our mamas that we support on our PAC side. And I remember the conversation, and it was, well, do I have this baby in Washington so I can continue to vote and do my job? But then I'm away from my 4-year-old son, Davis, and my husband and my support system. Or do I have this baby at home and I have my husband and my child in my support system, but now I can't vote? So she actually put this resolution in to allow for proxy voting. This is something that, the speaker had done 40 times himself during COVID and said this was unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional. Brittany turned around and got support from Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican in Florida. They had a discharge petition. They got enough signatures. It was bipartisan to force a vote. And Johnson did everything he could. He had a temper tantrum. He tried to tie this to the GOP priorities and agenda. They still got the support. And he turned around and shut down Congress. He literally shut down Congress because he didn't get his way. At the same time that he called Rep. Pedersen and Rep. Anna and Paulina Luna, he called them over emotional. They're over emotional, and he had a temper tantrum and shut down Congress. Proxy voting is how we modernize Congress. It's how we modernize state legislatures. It's how you can have a baby and still be able to do your job. No one was asking to not do their job. They want to still vote on behalf of their constituents. But if you have an infant, you're 100% correct. How do you fly across the country with an infant? It's really difficult.
Do you think that the intentions there were overt, or do you think that it's just baked in?
I don't know how to answer that. It's both. Chip Roy came out and I don't remember his exact quote, but the gist was, I don't give a damn who you are and if you just had a baby. So that, how can you be any less overt than that? But it's also baked in. It's this historic, it's the way government has always worked. It's the old boys network. But
I'll
when
say it, the patriarchy.
it is. It's the patriarchy. You were just talking about wearing your "fuck the patriarchy" shirt. That's literally what it is. But the second a mom steps up to run, everyone we've supported almost 700 moms on our PAC side. Every single one, including myself, has been asked the question, "But who will watch your kids while you campaign? How can you do this to your children? How can you do this to your husband?" Men never get asked that question. That's the first question. And at Vote Mama, we want to change that narrative. We want to make it completely normal for moms to run and serve so that the first question is not, but who will watch your kids, but why are you running and how can I help?
And it's not exclusive to politics.
It's women face this in every field. And by the time we're 45 years old, 85% of American women are mothers. And yet we can't get into those positions of power because how are you supposed to take care of your baby and go vote at 2 o'clock in the morning? We need we need to change the system so that people who want to be present parents, both moms and dads, can do that. Before the 90s, people used to get elected and move their families to Washington. There was much more bipartisan. Uh, there were more bipartisan relationships. People's kids went to school together. They knew each other. They saw each other in the community. Then Newt Gingrich was speaker and said everyone has to stay in your district and really made it political suicide if you moved your family to Washington. You get attacked immediately if you do that. But if you keep your families at home, you don't see your children the majority of the week. You become a FaceTime parent. And Kirsten Gillibrand will be the first person to tell you that you have to move your family to Washington. But if you're in a difficult seat, that's really hard to do because you're just giving people an attack ad against you. That needs to change as well.
So I certainly am not here to dissuade anybody from running, but I
Yeah.
think about that decision right now and what that decision looks like, under normal, I'll say normal circumstances. And then you add in the political environment that we are living in and the discourse. And then you add in these barriers. If you're a mom of a young child, like how do you get through to women who are thinking about running up against all of these barriers? How do you get through and say, but you can do it and we're behind you?
It is really difficult to convince somebody to run for office who doesn't already want to. I will say that. When I ran for Congress, I was a pissed off mom. I had two small children. I had just watched Trump get elected. Um, it was I couldn't not run for office. And frankly, that's all of the moms that we support have that same feeling. They couldn't not run. They had to do something. They had to fight. And they were fighting for their kids and frankly for everyone's kids. And when they step up to run, they're running because they want to make a difference. Women are always, there's usually one particular issue that fired them up that they said, I need to run. And we're not there to convince people to run. That's not an easy thing to do. We're there to support them once they step up to run. On our PAC side, we endorse, we fund, and we get really involved in these races. Um, we get to know these candidates. I remember when I would talk to PACs when I was running, you would tell them your path to victory. You would tell them all of your endorsements and how much money you had raised, and you'd get an endorsement check and you'd get the endorsement. And then you didn't really hear from them very much. Vote Mama is in these races, and we're there to provide a safe place for moms to break down and cry about how difficult it is to run. We are really forming the Mamas Network. We're putting them in touch with moms who've done it before, who are in office, who are running for office, who are doing this with small children. We're actually having an event later today, Mamas for LaMonica. LaMonica MacGyver, who is now facing up to 17 years in prison for doing her job as a congresswoman. We got a number of calls from a lot of the moms that we support who are currently in Congress, and they said, we have to do something. We have to help her raise funds for her legal bills. And so we have 5 different Congress mamas joining us today to help raise money for Monica and for LaMonica and for her legal bills. And that's the Mamas Network in action.
Okay, so what does the landscape look like next year, 2026? We're seeing so much about maneuvering happening with redistricting and who knows what that will look like when it's all said and done with all the states I'm reading about contemplating a redistricting plan now. But what does it look like? What does the playing field look like as far as women?
That's the hardest question you could possibly ask exactly because of what's happening. I have no idea what the maps will look like. Um, you know, Texas senators are taking a vote today. The House just approved those ridiculous new lines. And now we've got Kathy Hochul in New York who's going to fight back. We've got Gavin Newsom who's going to fight back. It's unprecedented times. I don't even know how you describe it. So no one will know what the maps look like, but the Republicans are actively trying to cheat to win the midterms because they know that their policies are not popular and that if they don't cheat, they aren't going to win these midterms. And so we're doing everything that we can do right now. Vote Mama, we are supporting our moms. We've got 120 candidates that we're supporting this year. We've got 2 running for Senate, Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota and Annie Andrews in South Carolina. And then we've got 25 congressional candidates. We have 7 Red to Blues. And these are some of the I'm so excited about our moms this year. Bridget Brink, who's running in Michigan 7th. Do you know Bridget?
No.
She is the former ambassador to Ukraine, and she
Oh,
has served under 5 presidents, including former Trump. And she was serving in a, war zone, and she resigned this year because of the way that we are supporting Putin and an autocratic regime, and watching what Trump and his administration is doing with Ukraine and Putin, it was too much for her. And she realized that she could no longer be out there as an ambassador and support our policies when we're supporting the bad guy. And so she stepped down from ambassador, she resigned, and now she's running for Congress. Um, and just to watch the meeting that happened just a few days ago and to see them roll out a red carpet and have our military on their knees rolling out a red carpet for a murderous dictator, it's too much. So I'm thrilled that Bridget Brink is running, and she's exactly the type of person that I want to see. We've got Denise Powell, who's running for Bacon's seat. He's retiring in Nebraska's second. And she is going to flip that seat. We've got Rebecca Bennett in Jersey running for the old Malinowski seat, New Jersey's seventh. She's going to flip that seat. Joe Mendoza in Arizona. Um, Sarah Chern Garrett in Iowa. I mean, honestly, we've got
Yeah.
some of the greatest moms running. I'm excited about it.
Okay, so I have a few like women's issues to get into with you, but first I do want to ask about this new effort that Vote Mama is really working on to advocate for state policies that have to deal with security and using campaign money to pay for security. You know this intimately. I was reading some of your stories about the threats and things that happened to you and your family when you were running. So I'm wondering if you can kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. We just put out a report on campaign funds for security. So this is some of the research that Vote Mama Foundation is doing. We have actually seen a 7,000% increase in the usage of campaign funds for security at the federal level over the last 10 years.
So
And if
let's
you
so like 7,000 spent, which is that was like the number that I circled when I read this.
Well, this number is even the 7,000% is interesting, but if we actually looked at the increase in just the spending usage overall for campaigns at the federal level, and it actually the security expenses grew at 18 times the rate of any other increase in spending at the federal level for campaigns. So that number really shows the situation in our country and how dangerous it is. And we just saw the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her family. And that's the situation. People are afraid to run. People are getting death threats. People's families are being threatened. This we're hearing from candidates and electeds across the country. And so campaign funds for security is now the next step that makes it possible for people to run and not fear for their families' lives. So Vote Mama has been working to get campaign funds for childcare approved over the last 5 years. We're now at 39 states that have approved the use of campaign funds for childcare. And now we're working on campaign funds for security, campaign funds for childcare. And I can tell you about that in a bit, but that makes it easier for people to run. Campaign funds for security makes it easier for them to stay in office and to feel safe. Um, North Dakota just became the 10th state to approve campaign funds for security. But we put out this report really trying to normalize it, trying to show how much it is used at the federal level. And more than 2/3 of the spending by women are spent by women of color. This is really it's a real issue that people are facing. When I was running for Congress, people found out where my daughter went to preschool. They would call and harass the preschool. Somebody broke my car window. Very small things that happened when I was running, but I felt it. But we've heard from candidates who literally had death threats on their children. Electeds who, Jocelyn Benson when she was the whole Stop the Steal. She was putting up her Christmas tree with her family, and she had protesters on her front lawn screaming, and she had to take care of her child inside where, these protesters were screaming and threatening her at her front door. So it's something that is happening, and campaign funds for security, nobody should have to risk their life to run for office and serve their constituents.
And that's on both sides of the aisle. I loved the breakdown of, it's pretty close, I think, from what I remember of the report, that the Republican spending and Democratic spending. But I guess help me clarify. So right now in a federal race, you
Mhm.
can use campaign funds for security, but not so across the board in statewide races.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the same thing with campaign funds for childcare. During my campaign, I got the Federal Election Commission to approve the use of campaign funds for childcare for federal candidates, but then you have to go state by state to get this approved for state and local candidates. So right now, the FEC has approved the use of campaign funds for security to use your campaign funds on security for all federal candidates. There are only 10 states that now have approved it for state and local candidates. So this is now a state by state effort. But it is absolutely Democrats and Republicans who are facing threats.
I need to say too, you not only did that, but you were the first woman in history to get
Yeah.
federal approval to spend campaign funds on childcare.
And the amazing thing is that everybody said it was political suicide. They all told me not to do it. They said, you're going to get attacked for being a mom and a woman. But most people don't realize that running for office, especially at the federal level, is the longest job interview you will ever have. You are working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 2 years with no salary. Working class people can't afford to do that and then also pick up the cost of childcare. So if you can raise the funds and basically choose to buy more lawn signs or hire a babysitter so that you can continue to go out and knock on doors and talk to voters, campaign funds for childcare makes it easier for working class parents to step up and run.
I love like I don't love it. That's a bad choice of words. I I can't believe that the reality of just being a mother might be used against you. Like that's that's the reality.
Yeah, no, it's always used against you. I had leaders of my own party call me a bad mom publicly and say they had never seen anyone use her kids as much as I did. I had two tiny children. I did not. My mom was teaching at the time still, so she would watch my kids at 3:30 when she got home from school. But I literally had a baby strapped to my chest and a toddler by my side for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't have childcare during the day until the FEC approved campaign funds for childcare. Two, I was nursing. And three, I wanted to see them as much as possible. So I was out knocking on doors and giving speeches with the baby strapped to my chest because that's what you do when you're a busy mom. But everyone will attack you for it.
There was this headline that stopped me in my tracks a few weeks ago. I'm sure you can guess which one I'm talking about. CNN's Pamela Brown turned the finished product of this reporting she did in Idaho. And she interviewed several Christian nationalists, including pastors and church members, about this influential movement happening. And it's growing in the United States. And some of the pastors actually called for the 19th Amendment to be repealed. That's the one that gave us ladies the right to vote. I also heard opinions in that piece about women not being on equal footing and that it doesn't take any talent, actual talent, to reproduce. But
They say we are the vessels that carry babies. Do you remember the quote? I remember reading it and being like so sickened by that comment.
yeah, and then I went right to I'm a Brandy Carlisle super fan, and when she was with the High Woman, they did a song, and it said, "We carry the sons you can only hold." So that I went to that also. But that I digress. That's a tangent for another day. The story is consuming my thoughts, though, and it's not actually the story that's consuming my thoughts. It's the idea that there is this movement that exists out there that actually promotes this ideology and that people are buying into it, and not just people, but women, that there are women in that news story saying, "Yeah, yeah, we sh we should vote as households. The man should decide." I'm just at a loss of words.
I am also at a loss of words. At a word. Pete Hegseth shared that video of that pastor speaking, by the way, on social media to normalize it. And when I saw that, that's I think when my stomach just got in even more knots. I have no idea what to say to that. We have we have the rolling back of our democracy right now. That's what we're witnessing. I just took my daughter to see SUPS, my daughter and my son to see SUPS this year. And they both were so enthralled and like watching what these women went through just to get the right to vote. And it was New Year's Day, and my son was so tired, and he's 9. And I didn't think he was going to stay awake for it. He was almost falling asleep. And he sat on the edge of his chair and he watched this. And they had so many questions. And then they read books about the suffragettes and just everything. They were so enthralled to watch that these women fought for this. And then I remember that story and talking to them about it and telling them this. And they, they're 9 and 11 and they didn't know what to say. And I don't know. It's terrifying.
So, yeah, I mean, the Pentagon did eventually clarify that Secretary Pete Hegseth supports a women's right to vote, but the fact that they had to clarify it in the first place was, I think, a departure. And then Hillary Clinton, as you mentioned, SUFS, I know she was involved in that project, the Broadway play about the suffragette movement. She posted a warning on Instagram basically saying, hey, we were warning about Roe v. Wade being overturned. We were warning about birth control coming under attack, and that she very much believes the women's right to vote is coming up next. So I guess what's your take? Like, do you think that that might actually be a target that we see soon, or do you think that like that will be a line too far for a lot of lawmakers?
I don't think there's a line too far at this point. We just watch Texas hold state legislators hostage. So no, I don't think it's a line too far at all. And I don't think that Pete Hegseth is actually in support of a woman's right to vote. He shared that on his social media, and I think that's what he thinks and where he stands. And the Pentagon is trying to do damage control by saying anything else. Um, I absolutely don't think it's a line too far to watch what the Republicans are doing currently, how they are willing to brazenly cheat to try to hold the midterms, to see what they're doing to legislators in Texas. Um, no, I think they absolutely could come for women's right to vote. And I think they're trying to normalize it bit by bit. And that's what I think we've been seeing is these like little news stories, little comments, little things that just, make it so it's it's too much and it's too overwhelming and you can't react to everything, but if you see so many things over and over again, it kind of becomes the norm that you don't almost fight as hard. So I absolutely think it's coming.
Well, we should mention the SAVE Act. I mean, that was something that was really in the news a lot earlier this year, and the House did pass it. It's still waiting debate in the Senate, but many opponents of that bill say like it could disenfranchise millions of voters, but particularly women who've changed their names because of marriage. So,
60 million women. I'm one
which
of them.
what'd you say?
It affects 60 million women, and I'm one of them. I have my last name is Gretchen Shirley. It used to be just Gretchen. So I could be one of them who could not vote.
And so the barriers here, like you know, I think you can use a passport, but a lot of women don't have passports. Or you need to go through the process of getting your birth certificate and then your marriage certificate to prove your identity. Those are big barriers for people. I don't have to tell you that, especially if you're a working parent. So I guess what I'm asking here, I mean, do you see this passing as is in the Senate, or do you think some senators may try to strip that provision out of it?
I think it could absolutely pass. I think I don't think we have enough senators who would fight it.
So if it
Don't
passes, then what?
Then women are going to be jumping through hoops to try to be able to vote, and many will not be able to vote because it doesn't sound like that big a deal to get a birth certificate or a passport, but it really is. And it costs money and it costs time. And there are a lot of busy people who don't have the money or the time to go out and do that. So a lot of people will lose the right to vote.
Are there issues? I mean, I would maybe I'm naive, but I would guess this is one of those issues that could get bipartisan support from women. Are there other issues that you have internally discussed about, how to work with Republican women to basically stop some of this stuff from happening?
I would love to say, and I feel like I'm sounding really negative right now, so I apologize. I would love to say that there are a lot of issues that we can have bipartisan support for. But what we're seeing right now is the Trump administration and the Republicans who are supporting him and enabling him actively trying to dismantle democracy. So I think that that is the biggest issue right now. You look at certain issues like childcare. There is bipartisan agreement that childcare and paid family leave should exist. Republicans wildly support paid family leave and childcare. The problem is, how do you get those approved? How do you pay for them? How do you get them passed? That's really where the disagreement comes in between Democrats and Republicans. The investment in paid family leave and childcare. And, when I ran for office, anytime I talked about either of those issues, someone would always say to me, ignore the women's issues and stick to the bread and butter issues. And it would infuriate me because they're the most basic bread and butter issues this country faces. We lose $121 billion a year because of the lack of childcare. And if we had similar labor force participation rates to countries like Canada and Germany that have paid family leave, quality, subsidized childcare, flexible working options for women, we'd add 5.5 million women to the workforce and $500 billion a year to the economy. So when I would talk about it in economic terms, Republicans would absolutely support. There have been both bipartisan initiatives for paid family leave and childcare, and yet we can't get them across the finish line. There is just not enough agreement on how to actually do it, which is just sad, actually, at this point in this country that we can't approve these policies that every other industrialized nation has. But then you come back to what's happening right now, and the Republicans in office are enabling Trump to have this steal on power, to dismantle democracy, to have too much control in the executive branch. I mean, we're in a constitutional crisis. So when your country is facing a constitutional crisis, how are you having bipartisan support for other policies like paid family leave and childcare? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think there is one.
So you talked about not wanting to sound too negative, and it's easy to go there. But I'm wondering, what do you say to women who come to you with these concerns and say, like, how do I stay hopeful? How do we like rise above that and persevere? And how do you stay grounded in this moment?
Yeah, that is a really good question. How I stay hopeful, and my mom watches the news constantly and freaks out and comes running to me. What are we doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? It doesn't make a difference. And if I believed that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I am hopeful because of Vote Mama. I am hopeful because of the 120 moms that we're supporting on our PAC side. I am hopeful because Vote Mama Lobby has been able to change policy at the state level to make it easier for more moms to run and serve. And I'm watching these women run for office right now. The women that we have backed, that we're supporting, they're raising so much money. Some have raised 1.6 million already, and we're in July of August now. We're in August of an off year. And the fact that they're able to do that, the fact that everyone is looking to these midterms as this is our chance to save our country, to ensure that we still have a democracy, to ensure that women have the right to vote, to ensure that we actually can pass legislation and focus on making the country better for the people who live here and who are raising families here, who are trying to get jobs and survive and buy homes and make it a place that's affordable. To be able to do that, we have to win these midterms. So I am hopeful because I am seeing incredible moms step up and run, and we are raising money for them, and we are supporting them, and we are hosting events for them across the country. That is the reason I'm hopeful, frankly. And it's all focused on the midterms, because if we lose the midterms, I don't know where our country will be. I don't know if we will have another presidential election. I mean, he's building a ballroom. He's not planning to leave the White House. We saw what happened the last time he was supposed to leave. I'm prepared for much worse this time. So the midterms. The midterms are our hope to save our country.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want it to sound as mean as it will.
Okay.
Are you glad that
Okay.
you lost?
Yes. To be very honest, yes. Um, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't even know how to say this. I planned to run again, and I was pregnant with my third child. I had every intention of running again. And I remember my campaign manager sitting me down, and she said, "Well, you can take 2 weeks off after the birth of your child, and you have to be right back on the campaign trail." And 2 weeks after my second child was born, I was hospitalized with an infection. And there was no way I just kept thinking back to my last pregnancy and thinking I couldn't do that again and be on the campaign trail 100%. And so I chose not to run. But I had launched Vote Mama right as my campaign ended. I built Vote Mama, and it was supposed to be my intern project before I ran again. And Hillary Clinton came to our launch event, and she answered a FaceTime call from her grandkids, and the video went viral and ended up on Colbert that night. And we got hundreds of applications from moms running across the country, and Vote Mama all of a sudden took off. And I got to do this work that frankly makes a hell of a lot more difference. We've changed policy in 39, 40 states, and we've helped almost 700 moms run for office. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of that had I run again. I would have been one vote in a pretty red district. And this way I get to make all this change. The other reason is my kids watched January 6th, and they actually turned to me and they said, "Oh my God, we're so glad you didn't win because you would be there right now." And I remember them crying and being really stressed. And we had friends who were there. Many of our friends are Congress mamas. And so they were watching that and they were really worried. And they said, "Thank you. Thank you for not running again. And we're so glad you didn't win because we would be freaking out even more right now."
So
So
have you ruled out ever running again?
no, I will run again. But
You will.
honestly, I will. I wanna wait till Vote Mama is even bigger and has done even more and has supported even more mamas, and I wanna wait till my kids are older, which is kind of makes me feel like a hypocrite because here I am saying, "I'm gonna support you, and we need moms with young kids to run." But I also know that I gave up seeing my kids when I was running. There would be multiple days in a row where I'd leave before they got up and got home after bedtime, and we need to change Congress so that you don't have to make that choice. We need to change state legislatures so that you don't have to make that choice because I love being a mama and I love being with my 3 babies, but god damn, I'd love to be there and I'd love to be passing laws that actually make it just such a better place for people to live and function in this country. So I will run, but I wanna wait till Vote Mama makes a hell of a lot more policy changes, and I wanna wait till my kids are a little bit older.
There's another thread I wanna pull out there. You talk about that fundraiser that Hillary Clinton was at, and then that one video went viral, and I think there's also a message about women who have made it or are seen as successful continuing to help other women and
Yes.
pull them up, and I'm in the same boat. I had a news story that was amplified by Rachel Maddow, and that was a life-changing moment in my career, and without that it doesn't take away the effort and the work that I did on that story, but without the amplification, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal as it was, and so I always think about that women need to stick together, and when you make strides, you need to make sure you're bringing along the people who are coming behind you too.
That is literally Elizabeth Warren called me 2 weeks after I won the primary, and my son had recently broken his leg, and I had been at the doctor's office, and there was a whole lot going on in my personal life, and she called and she said, "Congratulations on winning the primary. How are you?" And I started to cry. Like, full on lost it to Elizabeth Warren the very first time I talked to her and told her what my life was like at the moment. And she gave me this amazing mom pep talk. And she said, "We moms, when we run out of milk, we make breakfast with orange juice." And she told me about her Aunt B and how she almost quit her job, but her Aunt B moved in with her. And we had this really great conversation. And she would always call me kind of throughout the campaign to check in and just make sure I was okay. Kathy Hochul would call me before every debate and just give me a pep talk. And honestly, those conversations, just these women who had done it before, who had done it with children and understood it at a visceral level, having their support made all the difference to me, and they were the conversations that I thought of. Kathy actually was the very first call I made when I wanted to start Vote Mama. But those are the conversations that I wanted to provide and really support all of the moms that we support. That's the Mamas Network because you're 100% right. That support system is what you need to keep going and to pull more mamas up to run for office.
Okay, Liuba Grechen Shirley, founder and CEO of Vote Mama, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Alright, well, that's all I have for you today. Do you wanna tell
Okay.
me what's on your hat? I have bad internet, so I can't even see your hat very well.
So it's I call this my redundant hat. It's a crew cut that normally I wear a hat on a crew cut that's a crew cut. So it's a redundant hat, you know? Like I say,
Where did you get that?
this was, uh, this was, uh, this was given out about a year ago at the conservation voters thing when I was running. So, yeah. So, yeah.
It's
If you ever
your
have one of these,
haircut.
this hat is almost better than this hat, okay? Alright?
Oh,
So,
yes. Yeah.
yeah, so you know. But I think it's a great hat of redundancy. It's normally, I don't my hair's getting long now, so I don't have it in a crew cut, but normally you got a crew cut hat on a
I
crew
like
cut.
is it's called a crew cut or a flat top? I thought it was called a flat top.
Whatever you want. I mean, whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay. Alright. Well, that is
anyway,
all we have for you today, folks.
it's good to be done with harvest. Now we can move on to our next set of jobs and appreciate everybody joining and listening to us.
On Friday, we are talking to Dr. Michael Osterholm. This is a epidemiologist from the University of Minnesota. He is very well known. He's highly respected in his field, and he's been pretty outspoken about a lot of the stuff happening with Health and Human Services and cuts to vaccine funding and all of that. So
Yeah.
we are going to talk to him. We would love if you have any questions that you'd like us to ask him or things you want us to talk to him about regarding public health in any space, let us know. Shoot us a message.
Yeah, it'll be a good conversation, and, once again, a Minnesotan, a professor at the University of Minnesota, but that's okay, we'll overlook that, because he's I'm sure he's a good dude. But look, all this stuff that's going on with research, particularly vaccine research, especially when it comes to things like pandemic or cancers or any of those things, man, you wanna talk about not making America great, holy shit, that's exactly what that's doing, so, you know,
Well, and there is some new reporting out about the possibility that the Trump administration might be looking to ban the COVID-19 vaccine. So we'll talk to him about that reporting too. But
consider
yeah, if you have anything else.
considering it probably literally saved his life, that wouldn't be a smart thing to do, but whatever.
Well, and the big question mark I have is like that was under his administration. It wasn't Operation Warp Speed. That
Correct,
was
correct. That's correct.
his deal.
Under his administration, yeah. Which, by the way, was good
We
work.
will
He
hash
needs
it
to
out.
take credit for it. Good work. I haven't had COVID because of that vaccine. It's a good thing.
You never had COVID? Never?
Never had it. Never had it. And when my wife was going through chemo, it was scary as hell, but never got it. And I think it's because of that vaccine.
All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We'll chat again on Friday with Dr. Michael Osterholm, and that's all we have.
Tally-ho!